car that I was driving, and I took it to a shop, and the owner, the repair, I'd gotten just a few miles north of Tucson after I'd gotten the car fixed, and supposedly, and it failed. I mean, the repair failed, and so I called the shop, and the owner of the shop came up and got me, and got the car. We got the car fixed. It didn't take long, but he was a guy that went to Canada to avoid the draft.
Sure.
And it was really interesting talking to him because I was in the military at the time, and I had just been down to visit a retired general in Tucson, and Hoyt Vandenberg Jr., the son of the former chief of staff of the Air Force, and which Vandenberg Air Force Base is named for. So it's but it was really fascinating talking to him, and he said something profound to me. He says our generation will forever be apologizing one side to the other, my side for not going and your side for going. And I said, well, I don't think that I'll ever apologize for going, nor anyone like me for going. But I really appreciate the fact that you feel compelled to say that. And I think there's that sense of guilt that comes back to visit on people as they get older, because I think, and I was talking to my wife about this last night. I don't want to get off on this, but it was about the veterans here in here where I live. There are a lot of veterans here, Korean War, Vietnam era guys, and it is really interesting how crystal clear the time in the military was for every single one of these people, regardless.
Doggone, that happens every now and then. We lose Sam. We'll be back here in just a minute.
Yeah, I'm so stressed. Our business is growing. We've got people all over now.
Ooma.
What is that? Meditation?
I'm recommending Ooma and their all-in-one phone, video, and collaboration solution.
Ooma?
Yep. Switching to Ooma is a cinch. Just $24.95 per month per user, plus taxes and fees.
Ooma.
Now you're feeling it. Visit Ooma.com. That's OOMA.com to learn more. Ooma. Smart communications for the smarter business.
Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
60 rounds of freedom is right. Yeah, we await Sam Clovis, and he'll call us back. I think he was really getting ready to go on a roll, and I don't think he realizes yet that we've been disconnected. But that's all right. And I'm going to talk with Sam just briefly when he gets back about those who went to Vietnam and those who didn't. It was very much a class issue. Bill Clinton was hardly the only smarmy liberal who didn't weasel his way out of military service. I mean, Dick Cheney said he had other priorities. In other words, he would let somebody else do the dirty work for him, and that included going to Iraq, taking us to Iraq. By the way, his company did quite well with government construction contracts in Iraq. Sam Clovis rejoins us. Sam, I was just saying, and this is an important point that we should not forget, that those who served in Vietnam served for personal and emotional reasons, love of country, a sentimental view of their country that was prevalent in our parents' generation that no longer exists, unfortunately. But it was very much a class issue. Dick Cheney avoided the draft. Remember what he said about that? He really should have kept his mouth shut on the subject. He said, I had other priorities. It sounded smarmy, smug, upper class privilege, the whole thing. As much as Bill Clinton and a whole host of prominent liberals today in the media, in Congress, on and on and on. I regret that military service is no longer a requirement on your resume to achieve high office. Otherwise, we wouldn't have people like Chuck Schumer serving in office today, or most of the Democratic side of the aisle. If that was still a big deal, if people still voted by whether you served your country under arms or not, most of the Democratic Party caucus would be wiped out in a heartbeat.
Well, I went back and I was doing research on the Senate, and then in Congress in total, the 535, and I went back to 1972, and then all the way forward to 2006 was the last year that I examined, and the percentage of people who served in the military and Congress, I think it went from like 42% down to 17%, and in that span of 30 years, and and I think that number is even less today. I think it's probably down around 10%, and it is. Well, you can almost pick them out who they are. And it's really remarkable how little real experience there is with that. I was talking to one of my students who at Liberty University, and he's in the Army, a enlisted man in the Army, and it's really interesting the difference between kids that have served in the military and those that haven't. And oftentimes, and I will just tell you, I'll just say this, and I don't, and if I offend people, I apologize. But I have stood in front of classrooms, 18, 19, 20-year-old kids, and I look at those 18, 19, and 20-year-olds, and I sit there and think to myself, I said, I wonder what it would be like if you had to serve, and what your attitude would be about your education if you have to serve your country for 2 years and then come back and then go to college. I wonder what your view of education would be, because right now you're not worth it was so discouraging to be able to look at a room full of kids and know in that group that there wasn't a single one of them thought about the military.
No, if you haven't,
because the military was so good to us. I mean, it was.
Yeah, there is a trilogy written by Rick Atkinson concerning the Vietnam era people, specifically around the West Point graduates, I believe, of 1965, and the lives they lived, and the culture that they grew up in, and the way they served in combat. Some of them, of course, did not come home.
Right.
But it's such a great read. Atkinson has done a terrific job on that history. These books have been out for a number of years. But the first one is called The Long Gray Line, and it concerns West Point graduates of that year. And then the next two books kind of follow the West Point graduates through their time in service. And it's really terrific history.
Well, as a service academy grad, there is a bonding there that goes even a level further, I think, than the normal bond that occurs in the military. And the one thing you can talk to anyone that's been through basic training, and it doesn't matter if it's the Marine Corps, Army, Air Force, or the Navy. And particularly back of our generation, if you go through basic training, that was tough, and it was meant to be tough.
Yes, it was.
And everyone learned to be able to shoot. Everybody learned how to use a knife. Everybody learned how to fight. And
to the death. They didn't just learn how to fight.
That was what we were about.
That's right. They learned to fight to the death. They learned to kill the enemy with their hands. That's a little bit too much for the theater people that make up the Democratic Party, or the literature people. But that's the name of that tune. AM 1400 KBFD, the voice for Dodge. Our guest is Sam Clovis. I want to take the conversation just a little bit of a different direction. I started out today welcoming the return of masculinity. And the reason I started to talk about that, well, there's two reasons. First of all, it's Vietnam Veterans Day. Second, it is Will Smith smacking the hell out of Chris Rock on the Oscar program the other night because he was defending his wife. When was the last time you saw a man anywhere defend their wife in that manner? I celebrate Chris Rock. I told some of the white kids out there, the young white males out there who've been raised by their mothers, if you wonder why some girls hang out with black guys, it's because they're masculine and they feel safer. They feel safer. They understand. And I'm sorry, but women still want to feel protected by a man. If you can't do it, then they'll find somebody who can. Will Smith put the message out there, you don't mess with my wife. You don't say things about her. Of course, he had to grovel, apologize, and all the theater people went nuts. Oh, my God, oh, my God. To which I would reply, shut up, theater people. Let Will Smith have his moment. But that was it. When I was a kid, I saw my father's generation. If they thought their wives were being disrespected, it was time to fight. Now.
Well, but the other part of it was that you wouldn't find many men who would disrespect a woman either.
That's exactly right.
It was just not done, and the whole issue of domestic violence, and I know it existed, and I know it does exist, but we were raised a particular way about how to treat women. It may have been sexist, but it was meant to be that our job was to provide and protect.
Yeah,
that was our job, and I just don't know that's really ingrained, because I think we're moving to, or at least the Democrats or the progressives would want us to move to an androgynous society.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt.
Yeah.
I'm not sure what gender Joe Biden.
I can't stand that. It makes my skin crawl, actually. So,
Sam, get out Darkness at Noon again. Get out all your Cold War stuff again, because they want to strip us of our identity, or at least make us unsure, and make us, yes, let me say it, mere creatures of the state who are easily told what to do. If you have men who believe they're individuals in the great country of the United States, you can't tell them anything. And that's a good thing, and that scares the hell out of liberals.
Well, you're absolutely right. I think that is the difference when you have to deal with a collective mindset versus the individual. I'm reminded of the Star Wars or Star Trek, I guess it was, the Borg, and the Borg is a collective, and you have to plug into to that, and there's no accountability because the collective makes the decision. Well, the collective isn't really a collective. The collective is an elite group of people in that side of the aisle that think they're smarter than everybody else. They know better than everybody else. So they make decisions for everybody else. And that's the difference between a conservative and a progressive. Is a conservative believes in individualism, believes in liberty, believes in the traditional nuclear family, believes in voluntary association, still believes in God, most of them.
Yes.
And just flip that over, and that's what a progressive is. And it's just the polar opposite of that.
I had a friend of mine who started a very successful business. He went to UNI, got his accounting degree, and he's been very successful. He's retired now. But I remember we were talking about someone who was in his field who had graduated from college and spent their lives in the public sector. And we were talking about this person, and my friend said, well, he's a good guy, but he hasn't got the guts to start his own business. He's not man enough. And that is a real truth here. That's why a lot of Democrats are
profound, isn't it?
Yes, it is very profound. Because if you look for Democrats, if you look for the real leaders of the collective, They're well-educated people who hid in the public sector. And they demand that we pay them for a degree that they may or may not earn. Yes, their degree is significant. But are you actually worth that much money? Are you personally worth that much money? They don't want to come face to face with the fact that they may not be. If you're in a private business, what you earn is what you earn.
Well, the one thing that I was, that you tell your business students is that the reason that someone gets paid $25 million to bounce a ball on the floor and then jump in the air is because they're worth it. You get paid what you're worth. You get paid what you're worth.
You get paid what you're worth.
Free market system.
That's right.
And that's the it's fascinating when you start to get into this notion of the equity and equal distribution and egalitarianism, which is extraordinarily dangerous in this country or any other.
All right, Sam Clovis has been our guest. This is AM 1400 KVFD, the voice of Fort Dodge. I'm about to talk with some Iowa Central wrestlers here, so yeah, as long as we're talking masculinity, we might as well really man up.
Yeah, there you go.
I mean, I don't know if you remember Luke.
7 minutes in sport.
I don't remember. Yeah. I don't know if you're a wrestling fan, but Luke Moffat's in the studio, so I got to bow down to Luke.
Well, you better be careful what you say.
Better be careful what
right,
I'll say.
We'll see you next week.
All right, thank you. Sam Clovis has been our guest again. This program brought to you by Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters at 612 South 32nd Street here in Fort Dodge. You may contact Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters by calling 576-6481 or online at www.fdwater.com. All right, it's 3:30.
Your news, your town, your station. KVFD News when it breaks.
KVFD News, I'm Brooke Bickford. A woman who lived on the Meskwaki settlement near Tama died yesterday after being attacked by a pack of dogs. Radio Iowa reports that the attack took place in the area of Springs Road, which is a little more than a mile southeast of the Meskwaki Casino and south of U.S. Highway 30. Further details are pending, but according to the Meskwaki Nation Police Department, the dogs that were suspected to have been involved in this incident have been killed. A Northwest Iowa man was killed in a two-vehicle accident yesterday afternoon. The Iowa State Patrol reports that at around 2:30 in the afternoon, 71-year-old Curtis Brown Miller of Spencer was driving on Highway 18 near Hull when he struck the back of the truck driven by 43-year-old Jeffrey Verhoff of Hull. Brown Miller was taken by ambulance to the hospital, where he later died of his injuries. The shock continues throughout many area communities after the news that 2 teens were killed in a one-vehicle accident Saturday in Dakota City. According to the Iowa State Patrol, 17-year-old Gavin Maines of Woolstock and 18-year-old Madison Fraker of Algona were killed in the area of 230th Street and Nevada Avenue after the driver of the vehicle failed to navigate the right-hand curve, went into the ditch, rolled several times. Both of them were ejected from that vehicle. Both were seniors in high school, Gaines at Webster City and Fraker in Algona. Fort Dodge firefighters were called to 2016 4th Avenue North at a little after 2:30 yesterday afternoon, where they found a fire in a second-floor bedroom. According to Fire Chief Steve Hergenreiter, the fire damaged that bedroom, an exterior wall, and the whole house had smoke damage throughout. There were no injuries. 3 fire trucks and 2 ambulances responded to this fire, and the Fort Dodge Police Department kept the street blocked off so the crews could work safely. Last night, an announcement was made on the future site of the Fort Dodge Fiber Customer Service Center. That center for the city-owned broadband service will be located on the main floor of Citizen Central on Central Avenue. Today is National Vietnam Veterans Day, and it's a day celebrated every March 29th. March 29th, 1973 was the day the U.S. Military Assistance Command, Vietnam, was disestablished, and also the day the last U.S. combat troops departed from Vietnam. Right now, I'd like to take a moment, and I hope that you do too, to thank our brave veterans out there and their families for their service and their sacrifice. From the Jerry Sheeter Newsroom, I'm Brooke Bickford.
Here's a look at how the markets closed today. May corn down 22 1/4 at 7.26 1/4. July corn down 22 cents at 7.08 1/2. September down 15 at 6.66 3/4. December down 11 3/4 at 6.52 3/4. May soybeans down 21 1/4 at 16.43. July down 23 cents at 16.23 3/4. September beans down 21 3/4 at 14.96 1/2. November down 20 1/4 at 14.48 1/2. Soybean meal down 12.90 a ton at 4.66. April live cattle up 60 cents at 140.90. June up 170 at 138.47. March feeder cattle up 60 cents at 156.70. April up 3.52 at 164.35. April lean hogs down 152 at 106.05. June down 142 at 124.62. I'm Dwayne Murley.
Consumers could see higher egg prices because of recent outbreaks of highly pathogenic avian influenza that's disrupting chicken flocks. I'm Amy Simpson with Healthy Living on Brownfield. Brian Moscaguri, a global trade strategist with Eggs Unlimited, says it's hard to say for sure what consumers will see because retailers vary in the way they price eggs.
Some retailers will use eggs as a loss leader to get people into the stores, back of the stores, so that they're picking up other items along the way. The difference here than in 2015 is the price of pretty much all proteins, and a lot of items across the store are also dealing with inflationary factors. So the consumer may not notice the price increases that they may see at the egg shelf. They may, continue to attribute this to just kind of the overall inflation that we've seen throughout the food store. However, it's important that the consumer knows some of the challenges that the egg farmers have faced here.
He says egg producers have invested to make farms comply with state cage-free legislation. They've also faced the surge in buying and related high prices during the pandemic. Challenges continue now with inflation, the global impact of the Russia-Ukraine conflict, and now outbreaks of highly pathogenic avian influenza. It's important to note that avian influenza does not present a food safety risk. Poultry and eggs are safe to eat when handled and cooked properly. I'm Amy Simpson with Healthy Living on Brownfield.
The possibility of lung cancer can be pretty scary, especially if you're one of approximately 8 million current or former smokers at high risk. That's why SaveByTheScan.org wants you to know that now there's a breakthrough low-dose CT scan that can detect lung cancer early, and it only takes 60 seconds. You stop smoking, now start screening. For an easy quiz to see if you're eligible, visit SaveByTheScan.org. It could save your life. SaveByTheScan.org is brought to you by the American Lung Association's Lung Force Initiative and the Ad Council.
To buy your home, you became a house hunting ace, learned about loans, scoured neighborhoods, and asked the right questions. Now you're queen of your castle. If you manage that, you can get your retirement plan on track. Visiting aceyourretirement.org can help. With 401k tips and smart saving strategies, you'll feel empowered to own your retirement like you own your home. Go to aceyourretirement.org. Because when it comes to clearing financial hurdles, you're an ace. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
Liberty Mutual Insurance Company presents and Doug.
Check it out, Limu, a roadside carnival.
Step right up, folks. Test your strength. Come see the fire-breathing baby.
Let's fan out and tell people that Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance so you only pay for what you need.
Look, an emu wearing sunglasses.
Limu, you're famous. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
Listen to this station anytime, anywhere on Odyssey. Odyssey is your new audio home for all the music, news, sports, and podcasts that matter to you. Odyssey. That's AUDACY.
Family dinners, game nights, birthdays. None of these would be the same without you there. That's why it's so important women get screened for breast and cervical cancers. You could get these life-saving screenings for free with the Care for Yourself program. The earlier you get screened, the sooner you can treat any disease you may have. Your family and friends count on you. You can count on us. Get started at idph.iowa.gov/CFY. Brought to you by the Iowa Department of Public Health.
Michael Devine at AM 1400.
In the name of justice and the American way of life.
With 60 rounds of freedom.
That's right. I have 60 rounds of freedom with me at all times. I am delighted to welcome to the program the athletic director out at Iowa Central Community College, who is not Dwayne. This is Kevin Twait. How are you, Kevin? Good to see you here, buddy.
Doing great, and great to be here with two outstanding wrestling coaches.
There's no doubt. Luke Moffitt is here. Old Esterville kid, right, Luke?
Yep.
Yep. And were you an NCAA champ down at U of I in your day or not?
Nope, I wasn't. Big Ten champ.
Big Ten champ. Okay. You and the man we're about to introduce need to share this mic. You're a little too far away. Just grab it and move it around.
Zach Hensley is
Zach Hensley.
We had the pleasure of hiring Zach, who wrestled here for Luke actually, and had a great career at Iowa Central. Then did a tremendous job at the University of Nebraska wrestling, and hired him 1st of December to head our newly formed women's wrestling program, which will be competing this coming fall at Iowa Central. So we're excited with Luke and Zach at the head of our wrestling program.
I'm delighted, Zach, to meet you, and I'm delighted that Iowa Central has taken this step, as Fort Dodge Senior High and certainly the University of Iowa. I haven't heard anything from Iowa State. Is Iowa State going to do this? Maybe they're not on board this year. I haven't heard anything about Iowa State having women's wrestling.
No, not yet.
Not yet, yeah. Again, feel free to grab the mic by the arm here, Zach, and just bring it right up to you. It's all right. It won't, it won't get you, it won't double leg drop. All right. So I'm delighted to meet you for the first time. I hope we can talk a few more times because I think the promotion of wrestling in our state, especially since we are a wrestling state as far as I'm concerned, I think that's very, very important that everybody in Iowa support women's wrestling. I don't know how it's doing around the country, if other major programs are adopting women's wrestling, but I'm glad that Iowa is doing it. University of Iowa, of course. Yeah. Coach Brands came out real strongly in favor of women's wrestling. You were younger than Brands, weren't you?
Right.
Yeah.
He was assistant. He was the head assistant when I was there.
Oh, was he?
Yeah.
Okay. Was Terry there too, or?
Terry had just left for Colorado. But yeah, Tom was there the whole time.
All right. Okay. I got to get back to you, Zach. And my question is, what the hell's the Nebraska thing? What are you leaving Iowa for Nebraska?
I don't know. It's crazy over there.
They have the Corn Husker Highway.
I heard the air and the corn over there was a little better, but
Did you really?
They were lying. So when they said get back to Fort Dodge, it was no hesitation.
No hesitation at all.
No.
But you're a graduate of the University of Nebraska?
Yep.
Nebraska has, and I'm not going to talk about Nebraska more in a minute, but Nebraska has, as a wrestling fan, they have really tried to put together a good program.
Yeah, and Coach Manning and their program over there they're doing well, placing top 5 in the nation, and trying to keep up with Iowa over here. And
good luck with that. Yeah. Their football team can't even do that anymore. But I'm taking shots. I'm sorry. Where did Manning go to school? Did he go to school in Iowa?
Yep. University of Nebraska, Omaha.
Oh, he went to Omaha.
Yep.
Okay. All right. I think because I seem to remember him back in his day.
Yeah.
Anyway, so you have a big job in front of you here, Zach.
Yeah.
And Luke, are you in on the planning for women's wrestling starting up this program?
We've had a lot of conversations, Coach Twait and myself, and now that Zach's here, just try to support him as much as we can and help in any way that we can to get it rolling full steam.
One thing that I was so impressed with Luke, he was after me to start getting our administration's ear maybe a couple of years ago about it's time for us to go forward.
Yeah.
Indian Hills did it a couple of years ago. Iowa Western pulled the trigger a year ago, and it was
Iowa Western did.
Yeah.
So
and in our conference then next year also Ellsworth's going to have women's wrestling, and so will North Iowa, Nyack, and Mason City. So there'll be five of the 6 teams that have men's wrestling will have women's, and then Iowa Lakes is starting it not this fall, but the next fall.
My God, that's
so
wonderful.
there'll be 6, and then there's several NAI 4-year programs that we can duel and wrestle and go to tournaments with that are in our state, and then some surrounding states. So I really appreciate Luke. Some places the men's coach feels threatened by it, or the men's coach thinks it might deter from what they're trying to do. Luke never thought that way. He thought it would only enhance the sport of wrestling in our state, at our college, and And what's neat, with Zach having wrestled for Luke, there's a great relationship, and they kind of feed off each other and help one another. So it's been fun to see from my chair.
Well, Dan Gable, who I've met several times through the years, both in the radio business and because we had mutual friends, he said for wrestling to survive, and this was back in the day when they were trying to decide whether wrestling should even be in the Olympics. No wrestling in the Olympics? That didn't make sense to me. But Gable said if wrestling is to survive, because a lot of major programs were dropping wrestling, if wrestling is to survive, we have to have women's wrestling. And I think he's absolutely correct. I mean, that rang a chord with me. And I've actually learned a lot of things from listening to Dan Gable over the years about competitiveness and his thoughts. Kind of a soft-spoken guy, but if you listen to what he's saying. Anyway, Coach Twait, I want to ask you about the planning for this, because we're entering a new area. I mean, there's not a lot of high school programs that we can draw from in the state of Iowa. I mean, men's wrestling, boys wrestling has been around forever here in the state, but we haven't had the farm system, so to speak, at the high school level to draw young women to even major universities to wrestle. How do we answer that challenge?
Well, you look at this year, there were 692 females competing at a non-sanctioned event in Coralville, and for lack of a better term, that was this year's Iowa High School Female State Championship Wrestling.
That's fine.
But 692. And next year, our girls' union took the step that next year there'll be a sanctioned Iowa Girls High School Athletic Association State Championship event. My guess will be in Wells Fargo Arena, just like the men's is. Around us, Spencer has 28 females in the wrestling room. I believe Humboldt has 15 to 18.
I heard
South
that.
Central Calhoun has quite a few. I know Colfax, Mingo, Colo, Nesco, Waverly, Shell Rock, where my son's a football coach, has a number of female. There's some really strong programs that have several, and I know Zach's been in those high schools and in some of those homes of those seniors, and it's just about getting in front of them, pitching our product. And once a student athlete visits Iowa Central, I don't care whether they're in men's wrestling, female wrestling, basketball, rodeo, sports shooting, tennis, golf, football, whatever it is, we're hard to beat because we do house 1,300 of a wonderful campus. And it's more like a college field than a lot of community colleges, which everybody's commuter students.
I'm glad Iowa Central still has a baseball program, and a strong one at that. I'm a baseball fan as well.
We're playing today. We're ahead 15-5 in the bottom of the sixth against Iowa Lakes as we speak.
Is that right? Yeah. Is that right? All right. When we talk recruiting, let's go back over to Luke and Zach. This is, again, kind of a new thing for you guys. Zach, do you look for, as I mentioned, this hasn't been a sport that's been in our history for a long time. How do you find recruits, first of all, given that women's wrestling is a fairly new sport in our state?
Yeah. It's a lot of, getting on the internet, finding some girls wrestling tournaments, going to tournaments, meeting them in person, seeing where their minds are at. Like you said, it's a new sport, so there's not a lot of experience there, maybe 3, 4, 5 years. And then you're kind of getting into a cream of the crop if you got some very experienced girls. So it's a relatively new sport, but you can see with the mental toughness, that's what you're looking for, the attitude, their effort, their toughness and all that. And that's what we're looking for when we're recruiting, and just, again, pitching our product and seeing if they're the right fit for our program, because we know what we're building on. So we get the right people in there. We know we're going to get the ball rolling, and the sport's taking off. So I imagine here in a few years, recruiting is going to become easier and easier with the more population and the more experienced girls are getting.
There's a girl up in my hometown with the Fort Dodge connection. She goes to Bishop Garrigan. Her name's Audi Crooks, and she was Jimmy's daughter. Jimmy Crooks has since passed. But Audi is an outstanding basketball player, and she is a big, strong girl. I mean, she's totally female, but she's a big, strong girl. And you guys ought to go up and talk to her, see if you can get her to wrestle. Because I kind of doubt it's a long shot because so many major colleges are recruiting her for basketball. But she'd be an ideal wrestler. She really would be.
Well, now she's on our radar, so we'll go up there and we'll pitch it to
her. hey, check her out.
Yeah,
I mean, she's very physically imposing young woman, and from what I understand, the people up there, just the nicest person you'd ever want to run into. Yeah. But obviously, if you watch her play, she has a real competitive spirit, which is the heart and soul of any sports.
Absolutely.
Of course. And she really wants to win. But that would again, that's probably a long shot. But so, Luke, are you going to be involved in recruiting women wrestlers for Iowa Central or not?
just coming off of a trip, actually doing that. We had an opportunity to attend the high school national wrestling tournament out in Virginia.
Oh,
and they always have a big recruiting fair on the Sunday, the last final day of the tournament.
Mm-hmm.
And we stood there at a table, shoulder to shoulder, and there was too many people to keep up with, really. I mean, I was surprised at the amount of girls that came through, and it was a good experience.
Back in the 80s and early 90s, wrestling was kind of on a downtrend. This was around the time that Coach Gable was saying we have to get women's wrestling or, our sport isn't going to survive.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems to me recently now, places like Virginia, who are not known as big wrestling places, at least not to me, or the average fan, and other places have invested in wrestling. And that's heartening. Do you see that, Luke, or not? Do you guys see that, a resurgence as far as college wrestling is concerned?
Yeah. And honestly, we ran into some girls from out west, from the Washington State area, and they're kind of surprised that it hadn't taken off sooner in the state of Iowa. They always kind of looked to Iowa as being the leader, in the sport.
Who's that guy out in Penn State who thinks he's any good? I can't even remember what his name is. I shouldn't take that attitude. But I would be interested if there are more college programs. I mean, Nebraska, Nebraska wasn't known as a wrestling school.
Right.
I think they've done as a wrestling fan, they have really done a job building their program. North Carolina, I mean, these are basketball states, big basketball states. North Carolina has some real decent wrestlers, and I haven't heard much out of Florida. That's a big football state, Florida. Do you know if they have outstanding wrestling programs in that state or not?
They get some tough ones.
Do they?
I got a few recruits coming in from there. Some women,
Good.
Coming up to visit Iowa, show them what snow's like, and but they're taking off everywhere. And I think women's wrestling has something to do with that, whether it be Title IX, so colleges get at it, don't have to drop their wrestling program, and then girls get an opportunity to wrestle girls instead of having to worry about wrestling with the males. They get their own lane. They get to do what they want. They get to find a new passion. So I think that's huge in growing the sport.
Don't open up that door for me, Zach. When you start talking about girls wrestling boys, we'll be here the rest of the afternoon.
All right, another talk, another time.
Quickly. No, we're not here for that today. Gosh, I could call. I guess I could call Kevin down in Iowa State and ask him what the deal is for Osborne up there. UNI. I mean, they have. UNI has really had a good program up there, and they got some pretty good Fort Dodge wrestlers. I wish they wouldn't have got, but they got them anyway. If we can get those, and I'm sure it's coming along at those schools. I have no information, or unless you guys do. Do you have any information that those schools, the other major schools in Iowa, colleges will have women's wrestling? Have you heard anything?
I've just heard minimal from just talking with Iowa State. Right now, it's not on their radar just because they're focused on their 9 sports that they do have. Putting their resources in those sports. But if they do add another sport, for the Title IX reason, I can see it being women's wrestling. And as the numbers grow and the numbers are there, they're probably going to have no choice but to add it. So
I would think so. Some schools try to add archery. Archery. This must be the Middle Ages. Anyway, our guests are Luke Moffitt and Zach. I'm sorry, I can't pronounce your last name.
Zach Hensley.
Hensley, that's not so hard. And of course, former coach, now AD, Kevin Twait over here as well. So, do you have a plan for first practice as far as women's wrestling? Don't worry, Luke. I'm going to talk to you about men's wrestling too.
Yeah, it's going to be the same thing. Coach Moffitt's built a formula. I bought into that formula. Had success here. As we talked, was able to go to University of Nebraska. But if I didn't buy into that philosophy and that program, then I wouldn't be where I got to today. Maybe want to be back here coaching women's wrestling. So it's going to be the same thing. We're going to be tough. We're going to be technical, and we're going to have gas tanks, and we're still going to have that Iowa style. We're going to put the pressure on them, and we're going to make them fold, and we're just going to impose our will, and we're going to have fun doing it. and we're gonna have a good time.
By the way, the Iowa style is to wear the other wrestler down, psychologically and physically. Attack, attack, attack. At least that's the way I interpret it. Luke Moffitt is here. I understand the men's team has been doing all right out there.
Yeah, we just finished second in the country.
Yeah, that's right.
We had 3 guys in the finals. We had two champions crowns, so came up a little bit short of Clackamas. That's our big target right now, is to take them out.
Clackamas is where?
It's in Portland, Oregon.
Portland, Oregon. There's another state that's not known for wrestling, really, other than the guy that beat Dan Gable in the 1970 finals. Grew up here, lives in Oregon, but that's not a. I have a long memory. I have Irish Alzheimer's. I forgot everything but the grudges. So they're the top dog in JUCO wrestling now.
Yeah, right now, and I mean things have gotten a little more competitive within our state. I mean, all 6 community colleges here in the state are competitive, so it's a dogfight coming out of our region. It's just gotten harder every year, but it makes you better too.
Can you recruit well in Iowa?
Iowa's pretty loaded with.
We have the talent, but the big schools, State and the Hawkeyes and UNI, they do a lot of recruiting in our state. Yeah. Can Iowa Central compete with them at times?
I think you're lucky getting even just I don't want to say average, but you're run of the mill, just typical Iowa kid's going to be pretty tough and gritty and is going to surprise some people. Teddy Harvey's a good example of that. He wrestled here at St. Edmunds. He placed, I think, 6th his junior year. Came in and we couldn't break that guy. He was tough, and he ended up being an All-American for us. So it's a good example. Matt Burns, local. He's with the sheriff's department here in Webster County.
Yeah.
He was a national champ for us. He got 4th.
I didn't know that.
He got 4th at Urbandale as a senior and then came in and won a national title and was 3rd. So just tough, gritty guys.
And he just, well, that's what it takes to be a wrestler. Some of the older wrestlers always used to give credit to Iowa because we had farm kids coming off the farm. And that was a time when farm kids did a lot of manual labor. And they were pretty tough and used to that sort of work anyway. Tom Peckham, a great Iowa State wrestler from the mid-'60s, and I always used to like to watch Peckham. Peckham was from Osage, another great wrestler from Osage, but he got into wrestling at his teacher's insistence because he kept beating everybody up. So, all right, we can't have that on the playground every day. So why don't you go over here to wrestling? I think he was a national champion at least once, maybe twice. I don't know. But he was an upper weight wrestler. I can't remember what weight he wrestled at, but he's a big, strong farm kid. I knew that. So our guests are the wrestlers here at Iowa Central today. I should have said this earlier. If you have a question or comment for our wrestlers at Iowa Central, now's the time. It's 955-1400, 515-955-1400. Or you can comment on StreamYard. Just go to my Facebook page or the radio station Facebook page, and you'll see a video of all of us there. And you'll understand once again why I have a face for radio. And if you'd like to comment or ask a question of the coaches or the AD, that's all cool. Anyway, you're recruiting now, Luke, for the next year.
Yep. We just had a guy in today, so try to load him up.
Is he from Iowa?
He's from Kansas.
Kansas.
So and Zach was from Kansas, and my other assistant Ryan Coakley's Kansas boy. So they've been good to us in the past. Kansas has, and we've got a couple guys we're looking at from there too. So
hopefully it works out. You grew up in Kansas. What town did you grow up in?
Olathe, Kansas, so South Kansas City.
Excuse me. Oh, Olathe.
Olathe,
oh,
yep.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, that's part of the Kansas City Metro.
Yep. Down on the south side.
Were you a state champ in Kansas? Or?
Yep, I was a 2-time state champ.
All right.
Yeah.
You were a state champ in high school, were you, Luke?
Yep.
How many times? Just once or twice?
Just once.
Okay.
You were national champ for us. Yeah.
He was a national champ for Iowa Central. Oh, that's right. You came here before you went down to Iowa.
Yep.
Okay. Well, that's all right. How long you been at Iowa Central
now? 18 seasons. We just finished.
God, really?
Yeah.
Wow. Who was the guy that had the job before you?
Mark Ostrander.
Yeah, that's right. He did. Yeah. I lived in his neighborhood for a while. Did you come as an assistant coach? I suppose you did.
No, I stepped in right away, which was a little scary at the time, but you just got to hit the ground running.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong, but all the football coaches and basketball coaches tell me it's all about recruiting. You're recruiting all the time. Is that the case with you guys?
That's definitely the case for me. You know, I got here in December, just hit the ground running. I'm trying to build this team for our first year, and so that's been taking up a lot of my time. So come August, October, I'm ready for those days to start getting in the room and start getting to switch gears into the practice mode and season mode.
Yeah.
But right now, fully recruiting.
UNI is doing a lot of serious recruiting out of Fort Dodge, has for the last few years. They got the brothers there, and then they got Brock. And what's Osborne telling those boys? He must be finding there's something favorable about UNI.
Mm-hmm.
And Drake Ayala, it's exciting now for us to have him at the University of Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
Did you make him a pitch, Luke, or not?
I've known him since he was little.
So he just said, "Nah, he ain't."
I seen the writing. I saw the writing on the wall.
So you didn't waste too much time with him.
No, but he's good for the area. You get a lot of kids that come in to visit. They've all heard of Drake Ayala.
Oh, sure they have. And he's an I saw him wrestle. I've seen him wrestle several times. And he's an exceptional young man. He seems to have a real instinct for the sport. A lot of people question why Brands put Ayala in the lineup this year. Well, Brands is crazy like a fox because next year Spencer Lee will be out. And now Drake, I guess, is going to sit out a year because of a shoulder injury or something. Is that what he's got?
Yeah, he just had surgery. Just had surgery, so
he did
get him healed up, and he'll be able to gain a pretty good year of experience in the room with Spencer once he's healthy.
Yeah.
And they're all good in there, so
to
make each other better.
But he'll be eligible for 3 or 4 more years.
He'll have 3.
You'll have 3. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. Okay, guys. Anything else? Are we missing anything? When are you retiring over there, big guy? Huh?
Our president has not put a pink slip in my mailbox. I check every day. It's not there yet.
So you're gonna be like me. Work till you're dead.
There you go. One thing. I just some people have asked me, how are you going to schedule practices? Before we only had a men's program, right?
Oh, sure.
How's it? Well, we have a wonderful wrestling room, and we're going to follow the model that our basketball program uses. Our JV men practice basically from 6 to 7:30 in the morning. Our varsity 7:30 to 9:30. They start classes at 10. They take them all the way till 4 o'clock in the afternoon. Well, our women are going to front load with practice in the morning, start taking classes at 10 o'clock, go later, where our men will have classes earlier in the morning and assume the wrestling room at 3 o'clock. So we have a great facility rather than try and build one half the size. They don't have as many numbers and all that. No, they're both going to use an outstanding practice facility and both share it.
All right, guys, thanks so much for being here. Keep in touch with me now on this subject. As we go on.
Hi, this is Gary Rima, the voice of the University of Northern Iowa Panthers, and this is the home for Panther sports.